Despite being a 3D platforming fan for a long time, I've never actually played any of the 3D Sonic games until about a year and a half ago. Growing up, I had access to the Sonic Mega Collection on PS2, which was my main exposure to Sonic at the time with all the Genesis games and whatnot. Despite playing a lot of 3D Mario, I never actually played any of the 3D Sonic games. I think I was just content with all the Genesis ones, and I was a fan of those. Now, since I was a kid, Sonic has pretty much had a bad reputation for my entire life, and I think when I got a little bit older, I just kind of was not really interested in playing them because they just didn't look very good, and I just didn't really hear much positive about them. Once I was a bit older, I started playing a lot more 3D platformers that I'd never got to play as a kid, a lot of PlayStation 2, PS1, GameCube, all those kind of games. But despite playing a bunch of major series, I just never touched Sonic. So as of last year, I actually decided to start playing the Sonic games and giving them a chance. And I finally did. I finally have played every single major 3D Sonic game. So in this video, I just kind of wanted to commentate and give my opinions on each of the games and all of my experiences as a new player of the series. So you're getting a full kind of unbiased perspective because a lot of Sonic fans, have grown up with these games and all kind of have certain perceptions and memories of these games that influence their opinions now. And believe me, I'm definitely no stranger to these kind of opinions. I have plenty of nostalgia bias in all of my gaming opinions, like Pac-Man World 2 and 3 are two of my favorite games ever, and I wouldn't call those masterpieces or anything like that. And the point isn't really to critique the people who love these games. It's more of just, what are my opinions on these as someone who doesn't have those memories attached to these games. And I think what makes this fun is that the Sonic series is very divisive. There's fans and defenders for every game in the series, whether there's some that are extremely unpopular like Sonic Forces or Sonic 06. There is a lot of diehard fans of these games, so I think it's kind of fun that not everybody has like the same opinions. There's so many diehard fans of each of these games. So anyway, let's just get to the video. So here is every 3D Sonic game reviewed by a brand new fan of the series, or at least, a new fan within the last year and a half. But anyway, let's just get to the video. So, of course, we gotta start at the beginning with Sonic Adventure 1. So I think the first thing that I really noticed right out of the gate of playing Sonic Adventure 1 is that the levels, Sonic's levels, are really, really, really good. I think the level design is a lot of fun. I like the linear aspects, but it's kind of open. It's really fun to just explore these levels, and I think they're really well designed. I think obviously ones like Red Mountain and Speed Highway really stand out, but I even think some of the levels that are less popular, like Lost World, I think that's what it's called anyway, is really fun. Like, I just love all the levels and the vibe of this game. It's just really good. And I think part of the reason why, and one of the most important aspects to any 3D platformer, is the controls. Sonic's controls are so good. You have so much control over him. Yes, the spin dash is extremely broken, but I think that is kind of part of the charm of this game, is just how fast you can really go as Sonic. I think the art style for its time is really lovely. I think the controls are all fantastic. And one thing people tend to bring up about this game is that it's aged really poorly, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with. I think for when it came out, which in Japan was in 1998 and here it was 1999, I think it was a really good-looking game for its time. And even though the cutscenes are really goofy and the dialogue is silly, I think that's just kind of part of the charm of Sonic Adventure 1, is like the dialogue is really bad and the story is really, the story's okay, but the dialogue is really what's so goofy about it. But I think that's kind of fun. I think it works for what it is, and I wouldn't knock points off of Sonic Adventure 1 for its dialogue. Now, of course, Sonic isn't the only part of this game. He is largely the majority of the game. I would say like 65% of this game's gameplay is Sonic, because he has the most levels in the game. But of course, you can play as Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Gamma, and Big the Cat. And I think Tails' levels are pretty fun. They're all really short. They're fun to replay. I think his exclusive level where he's on like the snowboard in the desert is pretty fun. I think Knuckles' levels are really good. The treasure hunting is very fun. I think Gamma also has really good levels. I just like the way he controls, and I think the time limit is fun, and killing the enemies, bringing up the time limit is a really good idea. And I think Amy is in the middle for me. I don't think her levels are bad, but she is like, her story is so short that most of it is just like cutscenes rather than gameplay, and I don't even really think the gameplay is very engaging. It's all right, but it's so short that it doesn't matter, which is also why like Big the Cat's levels, it's like pretty commonly agreed upon that his levels are pretty bad. I just think they're very unintuitive and they don't explain how to play them well, and it's whatever because it's like literally a half an hour. You can get through that story so fast, then you get the supersonic final battle, and that's really fun. I think one more thing I really want to mention is like in between the levels in this game, there's of course the hub area, which is like the main city that you go through. And I think the city areas are pretty cool, but I think it's kind of a nightmare to navigate. I don't know why, but I just really always get lost here and I have no idea where to go next because the game doesn't really tell you. Sometimes it does, but not really. So I usually like half the time I'd have a YouTube video just up trying to get me through these sections because I just want to get to the next level. And it would just not really tell you where to go. So that kind of annoyed me, but it's not really a big deal. But anyway, that's it for Sonic Adventure 1. I think definitely Sonic's levels are the highlight. It's the part I go back to the most. I think they're really well designed. They're really fun. So all in all, I would give Sonic Adventure 1 a 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said before, I dropped Sonic Adventure 1 when I was probably like 15 or 16 because I just didn't really understand the design philosophy of Sonic. So I gave it another chance with Sonic Adventure 2 because people have praised this game so highly, you know? And after like one play session, I was like, okay, this is my kind of game. I really like this. I do honestly think there are a lot of huge improvements in Sonic Adventure 2 compared to 1. I think right off the bat, getting rid of the city sections and just kind of having it go from level to level feels much better, and it makes the pacing of the game a lot better in my opinion. I think the level design is way more consistent and focused. Yes, they are more linear, but I think having like the point system and all the tricks and the cool stuff you can do with Sonic was really smart, and I think it's really well designed. And I think it goes without saying that Sonic and Shadow's levels in this game are fantastic. I think most people really agree with that. Like, that is the best part of the game. And I do want to mention one of my favorite parts of this game is the controls. I genuinely think they are some of the best in any 3D platformer. The controls feel very precise and very nice on Sonic. Everything's smooth. You get the right amount of like traction. It's not slippery. It's not stiff. It's just perfect. I think the moves you unlock also make his moveset a lot better. And I think all the characters feel really good to move, a lot better than Adventure 1, even though Adventure 1's controls were really good. I think they're even better here. Of course, instead of having 6 gameplay styles, Sonic Adventure 2 knocked it down to 3, just being the mech stages, which were Gammas, and of course they had the Emerald hunting stages, which were Knuckles, and now that goes to Rouge as well. And then you have the light side and dark side story, which is great. I think that's a really good idea. And I think the part that is definitely most divisive on Sonic Adventure 2 is those levels with the Emerald hunting and the mech stages. People will have very, very different opinions on them, and in my opinion, I think they're really fun. I think the Emerald hunting stages being like actually built out of new stages instead of just being like Sonic stages, but you throw Knuckles in there and fly around and stuff is a lot better. I think getting their own dedicated stages is really good, and I really like all of them. I think like Pumpkin Hill comes to mind, Meteor Herd comes to mind. Those levels are so fun. Even if they're a little huge, they're still fun to navigate. It is unfortunate because I think the one level that I really dislike is Rouge's level. I can't remember. The space one, that one sucks. But yeah, I really enjoy the gameplay, and their controls are so nice. Yeah, it's not the most like perfect thing ever, but I really like it. Well, when I first started playing Sonic Adventure 2, I wasn't huge on the mech stages. I still like them, but after replaying them a bunch, they really have grown on me. I think the controls are really nice. I love how the scoring works, and I do think the level design is actually really, really good. I think Robotnik actually has some of the best stages in the game. I like his stages a lot. And I think a lot of the most iconic moments are really from this game. I think that Sonic Adventure 2 has a really fun, kind of ridiculous, but pretty awesome story. I'm not going to lie, I really enjoyed the story when I played this. I think the music is obviously great, which, I mean, that goes for pretty much every Sonic game. But I love the graphics, the art style, huge improvement. I just love the way it looks. It's very of the time. I think the bosses are all really good in this game.
There's really nothing I don't like. This feels like a game made for me, and we haven't even touched on the most important element. Sonic games are usually pretty replayable. That's kind of like the gimmick that I think puts it above a lot of other platformers, is like you're really meant to replay these. I think with other 3D platformers, you kind of just play through the whole game and finish it. Like Mario 64, once you get the 120 stars, you're kind of done. Or games like Jak 2 or Jak 3, you kind of play through the whole thing, and then once you get to the end, you're done. You'll replay it in a couple years. But with Sonic, it's kind of different. The games really do get better. After you finish them, you go back and master these stages, get good and higher grades. It's really rewarding. And I think Sonic Adventure 2 exemplifies this the best. I think the grading system in this game is really good. It's actually really tough to get A ranks on everything, and it incentivizes you to really learn these levels to the best ability. And I think that goes for all three gameplay styles. I've replayed so many of these levels over and over again, which doesn't really happen with other 3D platformers as much. And that's when I realized that Sonic Adventure 2 was really, really such a great game, because it's just so replayable. And there's not that many 3D platformers that are really like that. And it wouldn't be super replayable to me if the levels weren't awesome. And I really do enjoy like almost every level in this game. I really do think like the only level I dislike is probably Rouge's space level that I can't remember the name of, but I think everybody agrees that one was just a pain. But anyway, this has quickly become one of my favorite 3D platformers, and this really sold me on Sonic being a good series. I took it a little more seriously after this, like, because, you know, it's had such a bad reputation, which is part of the reason why I was holding it off for so long, because I was just like, Sonic's not really going to be my thing. Well, after Adventure 2, I was sold. I was like, okay, this can be my thing. And that's why, for me, Sonic Adventure 2 is an easy 5-star game. Okay, so next is Sonic Heroes, the first multi-platform 3D Sonic game. And this is the first one that's probably pretty divisive. I think Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 are pretty well liked within the Sonic community. I think sometimes people throw the word nostalgia bias out. Well, I'll be honest, I don't got the nostalgia bias for those games, and I still think they're pretty good. But Sonic Heroes is definitely a lot more divisive than Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. So, what do I think? I want to start with saying that the art style of this game is really lovely. It's just super colorful. It really, really does feel like the first 3D Sonic game to really capture the feeling of the Genesis era of Sonic games, and I really appreciate that. I also think the gimmick of having 3 players at once is really unique, and I can't think of any other 3D platformer that really does anything like that. And I think that is a really cool idea. I think getting to play so many different Sonic characters is a really, really fun idea, and I really think that that makes this game stand out amongst pretty much any 3D platformer. I also think the level themes and levels in this game are pretty good. I like all of the themes a lot, and I think a lot of them work. Like, I think what comes to mind is like the Haunted Mansion, like Halloween levels. Those ones are really fun and really well themed. You know, I think like the Rainforest ones is good, like the Rail Highway. The problem is not all of these are really well designed, and some of them go on for a little too long, probably. But unfortunately, where I think this game really, really suffers is the controls are just so bad. They are slippery, inconsistent, super unintuitive, and just like can really, really ruin the gameplay and the flow of Sonic. Like, it's pretty common to hear about people like flying off the stage in Rail Highway, and it definitely happened to me a few times. And no, it's really annoying, and I definitely had a lot of issues with mini glitches and just like dying and being like, that wasn't even my fault. That happened to me way more times than it should have in this game. And I think it all comes down to like the game never really explains how to play properly. There's a lot of moves and like cool things that you can do in this game that the game just never teaches you. And that's really unfortunate, because I didn't figure that out until way later, thanks to Sonic YouTubers who love this game. But even for me, like, that doesn't really help the bigger issues in this game, which I think like the combat sections and bosses are really not fun. And the combat sections can last a while. Like, some of the enemies have like 30 hits. And I know there's kind of ways to get around this and stuff, but it just slows down the game, and I just don't like these combat sections at all. It just sucks. When the controls are already annoying and imprecise, it just makes it brings down the enjoyment for this game. And maybe even the worst issue of this game is just beating the stories 4 times. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't want to do that with some of these levels. Some of these levels are pretty insufferable. Even if I like the theming, like, playing through them, like, Rail Highway or Rail Canyon. Sorry, I was calling it Rail Highway before. Rail Canyon. Like, those levels are just brutal. Like, they look nice, but playing through them is just not fun. So I'm going to be totally honest, I did not beat this game 4 times to unlock the Super Metal Sonic boss. I did beat Sonic's story, and I think that's probably enough. You know I haven't seen the whole game yet, but I have played through about half or more than half of the villains and Amy's team and Vector's team, I guess. The one, I thought I would like those stages, playing through and searching for like, the Knuckles style gameplay, essentially. But no, it's so bad in Sonic Heroes. I don't know why. I just couldn't get around it. So I've played most of the game. I'll go back and finish it, but for now I've just like kind of left it on. Like, I beat the game as Sonic's team, and I haven't seen the true final boss yet, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I was getting so frustrated with the game because it's just, some of those levels are just a nightmare to play through again. Which is so unfortunate because I see there's so many good ideas here, but it's very clearly unpolished. And Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 aren't very polished games, but you're not really going to run into a bunch of bugs and glitches and bad physics in those games, where you definitely will here. Like, it's pretty inevitable. And I feel bad because there are a lot of like hardcore Sonic fans who just like love Sonic Heroes, and I understand why, but it just didn't really do it for me. I really wanted to love this game. And I think there is some really, really good stuff about it, like the art style, and some of the levels are really good. And I do think it's like a little more of a challenging game, which is nice. But sometimes that's more the game's fault than rather like good design. But if it had better polish, I do think this would be one of like the higher Sonic games. And I understand why a lot of people really love it. I also just don't find it as replayable, again, because I just don't really love the controls and level design. And like in a 3D platformer, if you don't like the controls and level design, like, it's just not going to be as replayable. Maybe it'll grow on me at some point, but for now, it's a 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, so next we have Shadow the Hedgehog, released in 2005. Now, actually, I wasn't going to originally review this one, and I wasn't going to add it into the video because I didn't own this game, and it is kind of expensive, so I just didn't want to buy it, and that was going to be my reason. But actually, as I was making this video, I went to my local game store, and they had Shadow the Hedgehog on GameCube, not the really bad PS2 version that I keep seeing everywhere, but the actual best version of the game showed up. It was kind of expensive, but I traded some stuff in, so I didn't have to pay for it. I just traded some stuff, got Shadow the Hedgehog, and I'm going to be honest, I was totally dreading this game. I thought it was going to be like one of the worst ones, because it just looked pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie. And was I right? No, I think I was wrong to some extent. I think Shadow the Hedgehog is a game that is overall pretty mid. Like, I will admit, I definitely expected it to be a lot worse, but it's not really a great game, but it's not really a bad game. I think it's a game that's just kind of okay at everything. It has okay level design. It has kind of bad controls, but because the levels are kind of closed in, it makes it so it's like you're not flying off the stage or anything. It's not very glitchy, I wouldn't say. I think the gun mechanics are fine. They control relatively decently. And again, I think most of the levels are pretty okay. I don't think any of them got me shocked at how well designed it was or anything. But none of them were really that bad. They're all just kind of okay at best. The story is also whatever. It's obviously like super edgy and over the top and very, very silly, but we all kind of know that going into this game. I mean, looking at the cover, you can figure that out. But overall, I was expecting to be like bored out of my mind during this game, just thinking it was like a very monotonous like piece of garbage. But honestly, I had my moments of fun. I don't think any of it's really that bad. I will say that I think the worst part of it is definitely the fact that you have to get 10 endings. That's just ridiculous. And I'm gonna be totally honest, I've got this game like last week, and I think I've gotten like 3 endings. I've played it through it a few times just to get a concrete opinion for this video, because I didn't really want to delay this video anymore, because I've been making this for a while. And part of that was because of this game, because I just wanted to give this game an actual try and have an opinion. But yeah, there's no way that I was going to get all 10 endings and replay the first level 10 times in a row doing all this stuff. It is just way too much, and it's not really worth it for a game that I think is just fine. You know, if I loved this game, I'd probably go and get all 10 endings. But even then, I think playing it through it like 3 or 4 times, you kind of get a good idea of what this game is about. And some of the missions to like beat the levels are a little monotonous, but I don't think any of them are really as poorly designed as like the Chaotix team in Sonic Heroes. You know, I think like most of the levels are kind of set up pretty well to have all these missions done. The only level I hated in this game was like, I think it's the prison level, whatever the level is where you're with Maria in Shadow. It's like this big maze and all the rooms look the same. That's just a stupid level, and it's just annoying to navigate because everything looks the same. But yeah, I don't really have much to say about this game besides the fact that it's pretty playable. I don't think it really excels at anything, but I don't think it really is terrible at anything. Like, it's just a bit repetitive to beat. I think having 10 non-canon endings or whatever is just silly. But besides that, like, just playing it, it's not that bad. There's definitely worse Sonic games plagued with more bugs and bad physics and whatnot. And even though the controls in this game are pretty slippery and pretty similar to Sonic Heroes, the levels in this game are pretty closed in, like I said before, so you're just not going to be like clipping through things and flying through and off the stage, whatever, as you would in Sonic Heroes. Here it's pretty like, it's just pretty straightforward. The levels are so linear and like kind of boxed in that it's, you know, it's kind of hard for even the slippery-ish physics to really matter. Like, it's not that bad. I think like I was expecting the controls to be much worse, and they're definitely not the worst controls in the series. But anyway, I've been saying this game's pretty mid, so I think for me it's going to get a 2.5 out of 5 on my rating scale. I was expecting it to be much worse, but it's honestly an okay game. I'll probably play through it and eventually get all 10 endings, but definitely not anytime soon. I'll just kind of play levels here and there, because it's an alright game. Next up is Sonic 06, and man, the Sonic community sure loves to gas this game up. And I really, really went into this game open-minded because I think this game has gotten such a huge amount of hate that people just immediately jump the gun and be like, this game sucks so bad and there's nothing redeemable about it. But I also think that Sonic fans probably hype it up a lot, so I went in with a very open mind of like, this could be really good, could be really bad, might just be in the middle, who knows? But I went in with like no crazy expectations of it. And I'm like a little shocked by how I feel about it. I think there are elements of this game that are actually pretty good, but there are elements that are like unbelievably bad. I think for starters, like Sonic's levels are pretty okay. I think a lot of them are actually pretty good. I don't think they're better than any of the Adventure 1 or 2 levels. Like, I think Kingdom Valley and Crisis City are pretty good, but I would not rank them higher than Adventure 1 and 2 levels because I just don't think the design is as good. But I do think they are like fun to play through, and there are some levels that I do like the visual design of and the more open-ended nature. I think that stuff works, and I think there is a lot of good elements in Sonic's story. But the actual story and like cutscenes, I don't even really need to talk about them for Sonic's story. They're just really bad. Oh, before I get in too deep into this, I do want to say that people always bring up the glitches and the bugs and all that stuff. That is not the worst part of this game. I will be honest, I didn't really run into that many glitches in this game. I think Sonic Heroes for me had way more glitches than my playthrough of Sonic 06. But the worst part of this game is the controls. The controls and physics are so bad. Sonic feels stiff, unresponsive, everything just feels like terrible to control. Jumping is terrible. The homing attack is terrible. Why is Sonic so slow? His spin dash is useless. The controls being this bad just makes this game like insufferable to play. Which is weird because I think Shadow's controls are a lot better. And his story is a lot better. It's actually pretty decent character development from who he was in Sonic Adventure 2. I like that. But his levels are just filled to the brim with vehicle sections, which why? I just don't get it. And within these levels for Sonic and Shadow, you also get to play other characters like Tails and Knuckles and Rouge and Omega, which makes sense. I think it's cool that they had these characters that you can kind of switch into mid-level. I think Tails plays okay. His ring bomb is in the physics of the rings is the stupidest garbage ever. And I think Knuckles might be the worst controlling 3D platformer character I've ever played. He clips through everything. He's slow. Nothing works. He is unbelievably unfinished. And Rouge is just as bad, and Omega doesn't feel good to play. He's very sluggish. But let's talk about Silver. I think this game was like somewhat okay, like it was a pretty bad game, but when I got to Silver's story, every single level made me want to quit. I can't with his, he is unbelievably boring to play. His controls are bad, he's slow, the game just always runs at a slog. And I was playing the PS3 version, which is I think the worst version of the game. And it just made it so much worse. It's like it was hard to get through. But maybe even worse than the controls of this game are the city sections. Just the absolute worst part of this game. Every single time I got to one of these, I genuinely got angry because the amount of loading screens there are, the amount of NPC dialogue, that mid-dialogue, there has to be a 20-second loading screen. The mini missions are just, like, the city missions are so bad. It's just like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I playing this game? I don't know what brought me to finish this, but I did actually finish this. Even though I like Sonic Heroes more, I just didn't want to finish that game, but I forced myself to finish this one just to say I beat Sonic 06, because I want to have a fair opinion of this game. I didn't want to really, it's kind of different for Sonic Heroes because everybody kind of has the same story. Like, at least Silver's gameplay and Shadow's gameplay is pretty different from Sonic's. And yeah, it's bad. This game aesthetically is pretty ugly. I think the models and the art direction just aren't very good. I don't like the way Sonic looks in this game. I think the art style is pretty uninteresting and pretty un-Sonic. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like it's trying to go for like a realism thing, which I guess some other Sonic games have done, but they just do it better. The people and everything, like, they're just uncanny. I don't like the way this game looks. I think it looks pretty bad. Even the better looking stages like Kingdom Valley, like, I just don't really think they fit into like Sonic thematically. But hey, out of all this, Sonic 06 does have a pretty stellar soundtrack. I will say the music in this game is some of the best in the series, probably in like the top 3 Sonic soundtracks. It's really good. But a great soundtrack is unfortunately not enough to save this game. Now, I don't think this is one of the worst games of all time, like a lot of people say, but I do understand why this ruined Sonic's brand for, well, at this point, Sonic 06 is still affecting Sonic as a brand, so it has left a true stain on Sonic. And I don't want to be super harsh towards this game, but like, this is how I felt playing it. I had harsh opinions. But I do understand why people would like this game. It doesn't vibe with me. I think that I have played Project 06, and I do think that game fixes my main issues with it because there is no city sections as of right now, and the physics are really, really good. The spin dash is useful, the speed is much better, it fixes Silver. I still think his levels are pretty unfun in Project 06. But generally, the game is a lot better, and I do see, like, there is that potential of Sonic 06. There's a lot of people who say that this game didn't have potential. I think it does. It's not, like, irredeemably bad. I just think this game is plagued with so many, like, game-ruining issues that it is just, like, a very unfun experience. But anyway, I've probably been rambling for too long. I think Sonic 06 for me is a 1.5, a 1.5 out of 5 stars. So let's move on. So generally in the 3D platforming scope of video game reviews, people don't really love on this game. It's very mixed of like people love half the game and hate the other half. But Sonic fans love Sonic Unleashed. They love this game. They glaze this game. So I wasn't really sure what to expect when I first played this, but just like all the other Sonic games up to this point, I went in very open-minded. So let's just get the obvious stuff out of the way. I think the visuals and art style of Sonic Unleashed are probably the best in the series. It's my favorite looking game. It's extremely impressive for 2008. It's honestly amazing how good this game holds up, and I think the graphics, the models,
Even like the people look a little outdated, I think, but they look so much better being in that kind of cartoony art style than whatever Sonic 06 was trying to do. And oh man, the music in this game. This is the best like soundtrack in the Sonic series. It is wonderful. It's like Mario Galaxy level of good. Like this is seriously one of the best video game soundtracks, bar none. And obviously, the boost levels are really, really, really good. I think the gameplay here is just such a great translation of old Sonic, having those kind of deeply layered levels, but now you have kind of like these quick reaction-based challenges, and this is just the fastest Sonic has ever felt. The stages are gorgeous, the controls are great. I love how everything feels about Sonic's controls. He is just so fun to play as, and it makes every one of these stages replayable. And I think a lot of these stages are like the best Sonic stages ever. I mean, Jungle Joyride, Rooftop Run, Dragon Road, even some of the lesser popular levels. Like I always come back to Arid Sands Day. Eggman Land is legendary. Probably the coolest final level in a Sonic game. All of these daytime stages are so expertly designed and so fun to play over and over again. I literally adore everything about these stages. They really started Boost era Sonic with a bang. And I don't think anybody really disagrees with that. I think that's the part that pretty much everybody will praise about Sonic Unleashed is the daytime stages. And you know what? I also love the Werehog stages. Look, I'm a sucker for hack and slash stuff. And usually, when 3D platformers kind of throw in like hack and slash gimmicks, it's like very half-assed. But in Sonic Unleashed, I actually think that these Werehog stages are really well done because the combat just gets progressively better as you play. Like, the moves are really fun to pull off. I think he's just really fun to play as and very satisfying to throw the enemies, have the little quick time events, and all that. Like, as you keep playing, like, the Werehog stages just get better. But not only that, one thing I never hear people talk about is how good the platforming is with the Werehog. Like, I genuinely think getting, like, slower, methodical, like very precise platforming really heightens this game up. Like I really like the Werehog stages because they have really fun platforming segments. I think like Rooftop Run Night comes to mind as like just a really great platforming level. And because Sonic stages are more focused on like reactionary, like quick kind of things rather than like very precise platforming, I think that kind of balance with having slower paced like combat platforming stages is a really nice pace for this game. And I totally understand why a lot of people would hate that. I just think that having these like slower paced levels, the fast paced ones, just works really well for me. And one of the biggest gripes people have with Sonic Unleashed is actually the Sun and Moon medals, because they have this large requirement to get into Jungle Joyride. But I love exploring the night stages and looking for all the medals that I can, because you really can get most of them on the first playthrough. As long as you're looking hard enough, I think you can get all of them. I don't think any of them are locked behind moves or anything. And that's where you get most of the medals in the game, because in the day stages, they're very odd places. They're always hidden in weird parts that you'd never go to unless you like stop and look, which I think is kind of charming. Like I think obviously like the red rings that they have in Sonic Colors and Generations and stuff are better hidden to let you explore different paths of the level, while like Sonic Unleashed is just kind of hiding them in weird spots that you'll never look. But I still think there's like a nice incentive to revisit the daytime stages and replay those a lot more, whereas like the nighttime stages, you're just going to go through one time, get all the medals. Day stages, you'll have to play a few times to get them all, which is I really like. At the end of the day, this game is kind of unbalanced in terms of like the nighttime stages are really long, and of course the daytime stages are really fast, because that's just how the game works. But I think if you go a full playthrough and you replay the day stages a lot and just go through each night stage once, like it's a really nice balance, and that's how I played it. And I'll be honest, I actually just replayed this game and I did that whole thing exactly, and I had no issue getting the minimum amount. I think I had 140 medals by the time I reached Jungle Joyride. Also, I wanted to mention that the story is really good. It's nothing too crazy, of course. It's still simplistic and everything, but it is very enjoyable. I like Chip's dynamic with Sonic. And I think that just having a focused story that's really just about Sonic, there's no other characters, there's not this huge roster. Like Tails and Amy are there, but that's it. Not even Knuckles, no Shadow. Just a very, very simple, focused on Sonic story, which is really nice after Sonic 06. I feel like they were obviously trying to do something very different, and I think it worked. Now, unfortunately, when this game came out, I think it was just way too ahead of its time. and also it's Sonic Team, so this game was very, very poorly optimized. And this game runs terribly on PS3 and Xbox 360. But I originally played it on PS3, and there is an option on the PS3 to switch to 720p because the game forces HD when it doesn't need it. If you just go into your PS3 settings and change it to 720p, it actually makes the game run fine. Levels like Jungle Joyride still suffer from huge frame rate issues, but most of the game is fine. It's not going to run super smoothly, but it does work, and I was able to really enjoy the game. That being said, I did replay it, and I bought an Xbox 360 copy and played it on the Series X because my girlfriend has a Series X, and I wouldn't have bought one, but because she has it, I was like, well, I might as well play Unleashed on here, and that game runs at 60 FPS, super smooth. Oh man, it was dreamlike. Being able to play that game, perfect FPS, it just made me realize this game is awesome, and I really love it. And after replaying it and realizing how much I really love every element of this game, it made me realize this is an absolute 5 out of 5 game. It's a 5-star game, and I know it's not perfect. And when I give a 5-star out, it's not really a perfect game. It's just a game that I love enough to give that rating. And Sonic Unleashed is definitely that game. I just keep coming back to it. I would call this an underrated Sonic game, but clearly that's not the case anymore because the Sonic community loves this game. Like I said, they glaze this game, but dang, I actually agree with the Sonic community on this one. I think this game is awesome, so that's Sonic Unleashed. Okay, so next is the second Boost Sonic game, being Sonic Colors. Sonic Colors kind of marked a new era for Sonic, because it was really the first game to not be like kind of edgy and serious and kind of unself-aware like the previous Sonic games were. And Sonic Colors is one of those games that I think for its entire lifetime since it released has been liked by most people. I wouldn't say it's as beloved as some of the other Sonic games, but this game has always had its fans, and I think most people have been pretty positive towards this game. I'll start right off the bat with saying that I think the world themes are really good and very unique. I think that they all stand out amongst every Sonic game. I think every world is something very new, even just for 3D platformers. There's really nothing like the worlds in this game. I think visually the game is very nice. It has a lot of great colors, and every world feels very distinct from the last. And I think the controls are still great too. They're pretty much the exact same from Sonic Unleashed, just now you have a little double jump. That's pretty much the only main difference. The big gimmick of this game is, of course, the wisps. There's nothing to really break up the gameplay, no werehog, no mech, no treasure hunting, nothing. It's straight platforming the whole game, but you do have the wisps. And I'm just not really a big fan of these. I think some of the wisps are fun to use, though, like the shorter ones. But once you get to the ones like the UFO or like the red spinning one, I don't remember the names, but I just don't really like those ones. I just don't think they're very fun to use. I don't think they really hinder the game that much. They don't really break the flow most of the time. Some of them do, but some of them are still fine. And the story in this game is very, very, very hated. But for a Nintendo exclusive Sonic game, I think the story is pretty inoffensive. Like, it's cringe, but it is a kid's game at the end of the day, and I think they were trying to kind of gain a new audience from Sonic that was less serious and kind of over the top like the previous entries had been. But yeah, my main problem with this game is that I think there's a large abundance of levels, and most of them are just not very good and are very forgettable. Like, most Act 1 in every zone, every Act 1 is like pretty fun and pretty solid. But then the rest of the acts are like very forgettable. Usually they're like 30-second levels and just like are kind of nothing burger levels. Like, a lot of them are strictly 2D, and a lot of this game is basically a 2D platformer. It's barely a 3D platformer. But the problem is the 2D sections just control really bad. Like, I don't know why they feel so different from Unleashed, like, 2D sections. But Sonic's, like, hit a full double jump just sucks. And his physics just do not feel very good in the 2D parts of this game, which is too bad because a lot of this game is 2D. And usually that wouldn't be bad if there weren't, like, entire levels in 2D, and if they were just, like, designed better. Like, the level design in a lot of this game is just extremely basic, like, very, very by the numbers level design. Like, I'm pretty sure this is a very common sentiment, but I think there should be, like, 2 to 3 acts per zone, kind of like a classic Sonic game would be.
And if all these like 2 to 3 acts were like as long and detailed as like the act 1 per zone, if there was just like 2 to 3 like pretty lengthy levels that had a good mix of 2D and 3D, I think this game, it would clearly be a very short game, but it would be a very quality game, because Sonic Colors as is very much like a quantity over quality game. Like, I would say like 80% of the levels in this game are very forgettable and not very fun. Where it's like Planet Wisp Act 1, for example, is a pretty good level. Like, most of it's pretty good. But then the rest of Planet Wisp is like just not very great. Like, there's maybe one more level in there that's pretty solid, but again, it's like there's just so much filler in these worlds, which is just too bad, because like I said, like the themes are really cool. I just don't think they're utilized very well. I also don't think the bosses are very good. They're pretty lame and very easy. But I mean, that's not really a big deal for a 3D platformer. There's a lot of great 3D platformers with really bad bosses. So, like Mario 64, I think is a good example. Just kind of nothing burger bosses. But that's besides the point. I really think Sonic Colors doesn't really do anything terribly wrong, but I really don't think it does much great either. I don't think there's a single level in this game that is better than any of the boost levels in Unleash, which is kind of what I was expecting from this game, because I think I played this game right after I finished Unleashed. And I just felt kind of disappointed, because I was really expecting that kind of level design, and it's just not the same. It's just not as thoughtful or replayable, or they're just the levels just aren't as well designed as they are in Unleashed, in my opinion. Some people might disagree with me. Again, that's just my opinion, But coming off the heels of Unleashed, I really did expect this game to be a lot like that. Maybe not as good, but like it just isn't. But again, none of this game is really bad. Yeah, I like the level themes, and I do think some of the levels are pretty good. It's just there's so much filler in this game that it kind of just loses the point, and I just really think that the levels could have been better designed. I'm sure there is a Sonic Colors fan game that's fixing this and like combining levels. I'm like almost sure I heard of a Sonic Colors like remake, and if that, I would probably play that, because I think it'd probably be really fun, because I do think Sonic Colors is like a solid game. Which is why, despite my gripes, it is still like a quality game, and I still think there is fun to it, even though I was like kind of disappointed. But I have to respect that it was a well-made game, and it does exactly what it wants to do. It's very complete. But yeah, I just wanted it to be a little bit better. Maybe I'll like it more in the future. But for now, Sonic Colors is a 3.5 out of 5. Okay, and now we're on to one of the biggest games, and one that was a big deal when it came out. I even remember it being a big deal when I was a kid, and that is, of course, Sonic Generations. Sonic Generations is truly one of the few Sonic games that has been pretty much celebrated by everybody, even 3D platformer fans, Sonic fans. Pretty much everybody likes this game. I haven't really heard very much negative. Like, even Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, the words nostalgia bias, like I said before, always thrown at those games. I don't even really hear that with Generations. I feel like everybody's like mostly pretty positive towards this game. I'm not saying literally everybody, but this game has gotten pretty positive reception for the past 15 years. Now, I actually have a pretty fun story with this one, so to prepare myself for Generations, I actually wanted to play all the games that were relevant to Sonic Generations, so then I kind of like understood where all of the levels and references were coming from. So up to this point, I was really looking forward to Generations, because I played and finished literally every game that was going to be included in that game. The Genesis ones, CD, or at least I thought CD would be in there. And I also didn't know very much about this game, so I went in very, like, I knew maybe a couple of the zones that were in it, but most of it I actually didn't know. I hadn't gotten much of this game spoiled, so I was pretty excited to jump into this one, because it has a lot of hype. I was hoping I'd really like it. And funnily enough, it kind of lined up. I think this was the day the Switch 2 released, I think June 5th of last year. Of course, me and my brother stood in line to get the Switch 2. I picked up Mario Kart World, and then I saw Sonic X Shadow Generations back there. And I didn't have any like current hardware to play that game on. I didn't want to play it on the original Switch, because that would just be terrible. But I saw it, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize this was launching on Switch 2. And so I bought it. And it kind of conveniently lined up. I had just finished like all of the Sonic games that came before it, so it was kind of perfect. So all that to say that the remaster is the original version, the first version that I played of Generations. Eventually, I had the PS3 version and played that one as well, so I played both versions. And regardless, it's pretty much the same experience. So anyway, let me actually talk about this. Let me start with saying that I just think this game is absolutely just such a great celebration of Sonic as a series. I'll start with the obvious in saying that the modern Sonic levels are some of the best in the whole series. They're brilliantly designed, have so many layers of complexity. They're all really fun. I literally like every single one in the game. I think Planet Wisp, people don't like that level, but I actually am a huge fan of it. I think it's a really good level. The gameplay and level design feels way more aligned with Unleashed. The controls and physics are pretty much the same as Unleashed. The level design, although a lot shorter than Unleashed levels, they are pretty much like, they feel very similar to me. Now, a lot of people are kind of divisive on classic Sonic in this game because he doesn't really feel like Genesis Sonic, and while I agree that he does feel a lot different, I think his levels are really fun, and I think his physics are really good. The spin dash is really overpowered, but it does feel like with how fast it goes, it balances out with the amount of speed you get from Boost Sonic. It feels like they're both kind of equal now in speed. But even Classic Sonic, I think, has some of the best levels in the game. I love City Escape Act 1. I think that level is really good. I think Crisis City Act 1 and Rooftop Run Act 1 are some of the best levels in the game. I just love playing those levels, and it's so cool to get, like, side-scroller level, or, like, versions of those levels. And within those levels, and just throughout the whole game, the attention to detail to all the previous Sonic games and all the little references and whatnot is just, it's amazing. They put so much care into really accurately representing all these games in a new space. I just absolutely love that. I think it's awesome. I also think that the red ring placement it's very similar to Sonic Colors, but I think the placement of the red rings allows for so much more exploration and allows you to kind of find all the alternate paths and whatnot, and I love that. It just, after replaying it pretty recently, a few months ago, I just loved recollecting all the red rings, and this is when I was playing the PS3 version, and it was just a lot of fun. I just realized how, like, well placed all of them were, and it gave me the same kind of, like, satisfaction that I got as a kid playing New Super Mario Bros. Wii, getting all the star coins. I just love stuff like that, platformers. I think all the bosses they picked for this game, again, just the attention to detail is flawless. I think all the bosses are really fun, except for the last one, but I'll get into that in a second. I think the challenges are fun. All the little missions, I had a lot of fun clearing all those. I think all of them, again, are just really fun and add more replayability and whatnot. I think obviously one of the big complaints of Sonic Generations is the story, but you're not really playing this for the story. I mean, the levels are so good and replayable that, like, it doesn't really matter. It's a weak story, but it doesn't really matter. It's not really affecting my opinion of the game, really. I think the final boss also, the supersonic boss in this game, is just really bad, and it's just because it just goes on for so long and it's really boring. Like, I don't like it. It's a very bad boss, but the rest of the bosses in the game are really good. But even with those two gripes, I think this game is just so infinitely replayable. Like, at first when I actually played this, I thought it was really good, but I still didn't like it as much as Unleashed or some of the other games. I thought it was good. It was a solid 4 out of 5. But I've literally put so many hours into this game. I think I've put more hours into Generations than any other Sonic game. And I actually, like, have really learned to love this game even more than I did when I first played it. And I was a big fan of it when I first played it, but I wasn't, like, totally sold on it. You know, I was like, there's too many 2D sections here, and, you know, there's just some things I don't like the story. But the more I just play the levels, the more I discover, like, the details and how many paths there are, and just how much, like, the skill ceiling is really high. Like, you can really tell when there's like a really good Sonic Generations player and, like, kind of an average player like myself, and, like, it really is like, wow, you can keep playing these and get, like, a perfect run. It's very cool. So after putting probably, like, I don't know, 50 hours into the game, which is a lot more than the other Sonic games I've played, it's not my number one Sonic game, but it's up there now. I would say this is an easy 5 out of 5 for me. It's definitely not a perfect game. Again, 5 out of 5s aren't perfect. They're just, like, games that I really love, and this is one that I really have a hard time putting down. More than any other Sonic game, I always play Generations a lot, and I think it's just so much fun. So, yeah, I'm happy to say that I ended up being a big fan of Sonic Generations.
The next one I have here is probably one of the most forgotten Sonic games, and that is, of course, Sonic Lost World, which was exclusive for the Wii U for some time. I think it's on Steam now, of course. And Lost World's an interesting case because it is a very unique Sonic game. Again, there's like really nothing like this one. And most of the issues with this game are almost opposite from like all the bad or like middle of the road Sonic games. That's mainly because I feel like this is a very complete game. It's very polished. I think the controls are pretty good and pretty responsive, and I think like the parkour stuff works pretty well. That being said, it is a very generic feeling game, and a lot of people say that this like really rips off Mario Galaxy, and I kind of somewhat agree with like the planets and like, but I don't think it rips off like the style of Mario Galaxy at all. It really, really feels like a new Super Mario Bros. Game or 3D Land, 3D World. Like it's straight up a like Mario like generic era ripoff. It just feels exactly like that. The world themes are all very typical 3D player, like I guess 2D platformer world themes, like grass, desert, snow, jungle. And some games can get away with this. I think Donkey Kong Country Returns kind of gets away with it, with having some more generic themes. Kirby Return to Dreamland gets away with it, and I absolutely love that game because it has such a wonderful art style. But this game doesn't. It just feels very, very boring and very unsonic. This has a similar problem to Sonic Colors, where I feel like there are some levels in this game that are pretty fun, but most of the levels are pretty forgettable and pretty boring. Definitely more so than Colors. I think Sonic Colors has a lot more fun levels than this game does. And the Wisps are back, and they're so unbelievably useless. They're so nothing in this game. I don't even know why they bothered to include them. And the main gimmick of this game is really the parkour mechanics. And I think that's a great idea, but man, they go nowhere with this idea. The level design never really makes you use the parkour, maybe once or twice with like 2D sections, but in the 3D sections, I don't think they ever actually require you to like play with the game's mechanics. And they do feel like pretty unintuitive. Like once you figure it out, they work pretty well. And I've seen people play Lost World. I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive. It looks cool. But like the game doesn't ever teach you to use these. It doesn't ever use level design to cleverly teach you how. You have to learn it from yourself or from YouTube, because the game won't teach you. And because the Sonic can sometimes like feel really sluggish, and that's just, I wish he felt a little bit faster in this game. The one thing that people absolutely hate in Lost World is the story. People will bring up how bad the story is, and I don't know. It's the same as Sonic Colors, where it's like, it's goofy, it's lighthearted, it's not a good story, and I think I can't remember the bad guys, the Deadly Six, whatever their people are called. They're very uninteresting and very uninspired feeling characters. But again, this is a Nintendo exclusive Sonic game. It's fine. I don't think it's like hard to watch, and it doesn't take itself super seriously like Sonic 06 does. I just don't really get why people like hate this story like they do. But, you know, I'm not trying to say it's good or anything, because it's not. But all that to say, this game is very mid. Like, it is a functional, polished game. It works. But it is very, very generic, and I think it misses a lot of potential, especially with its parkour system. And it really just kind of lost Sonic's identity here. It's just missing what makes Sonic not Mario, I guess, you know? Like, you're kind of playing Sonic to not get, like, a Mario vibe. So, unfortunately, even though I think this game could have been pretty good, it is very much in the middle for me. It's a 2.5 out of 5. Very mid, nothing offensive, just meh. And then we have Sonic Forces. This was probably the one I was least excited for, which shouldn't surprise anybody. And I've got to say that this game is just kind of nothing. Again, we could talk about missed opportunity, but it's not even like Sonic 06, where there's like great ideas in this game, or like pretty cool level design that sometimes goes somewhere. This game like doesn't really have anything good. Like, sure, it's functional. It's definitely not a buggy game. The graphics are polished. It's like, it's all there. It feels pretty complete, I guess. But the game is just so lame. Like, I feel like that's the best word to describe it. It's lame. It's got
lame villains, lame level design, pretty lame art style. I don't even think the music's that good in this game. That might be a hot take. I don't know. I don't know how people feel about the Forces soundtrack, but I just didn't really care for any of the songs. And I think like they hyped up all this cool stuff with all the villains coming back and all this stuff, classic Sonic's here, and just none of it was really executed well. The boost gameplay is just very, very like simplified. It's basically just, going in a straight line. Like, I don't even really have to talk about this. Everybody already knows this. And classic Sonic is unbelievably bad. I don't know how they messed up his physics, but man, it just feels terrible to play him. And the OC character's levels are just, eh. The level design isn't good. He controls fine, but that's about it. The only thing I can say that sounded like a good idea, besides like bringing back all the villains, is like Sonic losing. That's a pretty cool idea that goes nowhere in this game. But even after all that, the game is 2 hours long. It's like pitifully short. So even though like there's nothing like really hard to sit through like Sonic 06 or terrible control. I mean, there is terrible controls, but there's nothing like secret rings or anything of that like level of bad. There's just nothing about this game that is good to me. And I'm sure there is redeemable aspects. Like there might be some people who love aspects of Sonic Forces, but I don't really find anything interesting from this game, and it was a very forgettable experience for me. So this is going to be my lowest rated one so far. I'm giving this a 1 star. Yeah, and I know there's games that are probably worse and buggier and less polished, but man, this one just is just a big disappointment for everyone. We've of course got Sonic Frontiers, which is very much a return to the series, but also just like something totally new. And I gotta be completely honest, I have not really finished this game yet. I'm not really that far into it. I'm a few hours in. I think I'm on like the 3rd island. And I know that's gonna sound stupid because you're gonna be like, Ryan, you finished Sonic 06, Sonic Forces, these games that you just hate, but you couldn't finish Frontiers yet. And I know that sounds bad, but I'm really just not like an open world kind of guy. Like games like Breath of the Wild and stuff just like don't really interest me. And it's not because I think they're bad. It's just not really my thing. And there is a lot of stuff about Frontiers that is like just awesome. I think the controls are really, really good. I think the combat is such a great idea and it actually just works really well and it's very cool. The music is incredible from what I've heard so far. And the bosses, I mean, come on. They are just like actually phenomenal. And I think the story going back to a serious tone instead of being like lighthearted and goofy. I mean, I know Forces did that, but it failed so hard. I think Frontiers is like actually a pretty well written game so far. But I'm just not crazy about the level design or world design, it's just kind of a bunch of little obstacles like scattered around an island and little challenges and stuff. And it's just not very interesting to me. And it's not that I think it's bad either. It's just like, I just knew this wasn't really going to be my thing because open worlds, I just like the level structure in platformers a lot. That's what I'm more used to. So for now, I'm probably going to leave Sonic Frontiers unrated. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy high. I think like the highest I will end up giving it would be like a 4 out of 5, and I don't think it would be lower than a 3 out of 5. It's a pretty well made game, and it's still fun. It's just like a longer Sonic game, so I haven't had the motivation to sit down and finish it, because I mean most of the time Sonic games are like 5 hours. But maybe I'll upload a video or something on the definitive edition if people really care to hear my opinions, which maybe you don't. But for now, Frontiers is staying in the backlog, which sounds really stupid because I finished Sonic 06, and that game is probably longer than Frontiers. I wanted to finish it before I played Generations. I was determined, okay? But anyway, if I somehow finish this before the video is made, which is kind of unlikely, I will update it. But for now, I'm keeping this in, so let's move on. Okay, and last we have the most recent 3D Sonic game, which is of course Shadow Generations. I was really excited for this game because I just thought it was such a cool idea to do kind of like a Sonic Generations sequel, but you're playing as Shadow and all his levels, being able to bring back some other levels that didn't make it to Generations. I just thought that was the coolest idea, so I was really excited to play this game. This is another one that has been getting a lot of hype for the last couple years or so. And that could have been recency bias, because when I
got the game, I think it was only a few months old at that point. I think immediately what I noticed was that there are some things in this game that I think are really huge improvements over the general boost formula. I think the controls are probably the best they've been for any boost game. I just think that Shadow feels really good, very fun to control. His boost is definitely a bit slower than Sonic's, which is fine. I think it's kind of cool having Shadow feel different. And the homing chains in this game are kind of crazy slow, but pretty much the entire game has awesome level design. One thing that I actually really enjoy about this game that was kind of a complaint of mine from boost games, but I've kind of changed my perspective on it, is that there's like when you do Act 1, the whole level is 3D. There's no 2D sections in these levels. They're all 3D. And then Act 2 is always 2D. And there's no 3D in those sections. It's just always 2D. And I liked that because in Sonic Generations, I really felt like, it was a bit heavy-handed in the 2D side. But going back and playing it again, I realized like the flow of the levels is so good. And I love the level design of that game that it kind of stopped bothering me. But regardless, the level design is amazing. I think of levels like Kingdom Valley Act 1, Space Colony Arc. The last two Radical Highways are very tough levels and very fun. And these are also some of the best Sonic levels ever. They're just really good. And I think all of the Act 2s are also really good. The 2D stages are really fun. I also think the bosses are really awesome, even better than they are in Generations, I think. The music is really good in this game. I think that finding the collectibles in the levels, the little tokens or whatever they are, I think are fun, but I don't think they're as well placed as the red rings are in Generations. And I think the story might be like the best story in the whole series. I don't know. I just think it works really, really well. And I think it's really great. Over the past year since I first played it, though, obviously I've replayed Unleashed and Generations and gone back and played a lot of the Shadow Generations levels. And I just don't really find these levels to be as replayable or even as well designed as the Unleashed and Generation stages. I don't know if it's just like a preference thing, because I feel like the stages here are really, really good. And it could be due to some elements like the cutscenes in Shadow Generations, like the unskippable cutscenes that are ingrained in a lot of the levels. Like that kind of stops the flow a little bit. But even then, that's getting kind of like nitpicky. I just prefer Unleashed and Generations after replaying all these games, and I do think Shadow Gens is really, really good. It's one of the highest quality Sonic games. It shows that Sega's getting on a really good track here of making just like quality platformers, and even like Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. Like they're picking up on their quality, and Shadow Generations, being just a quote unquote tiny add-on to a remaster for only $50, you're getting basically a whole new Sonic game plus a remaster of one of the best ones, and a really good remaster at that. Sonic doesn't have great history with remasters, of course, but yeah, it's just a great deal, and Shadow Generations is a really quality game. It's not my absolute favorite, but if you told me that Shadow Generations was your absolute favorite Sonic game, I would not argue, because it is really, really good, and it has a lot of like the highest highs in the Sonic series, which is great. And after playing all these, I can say that like Sonic's in a pretty good place right now, which is really good. So overall, I think I would give Shadow Generations a 4.5 out of 5. Okay, so there it is. Every major 3D Sonic game reviewed. Obviously, I didn't go through every single one. I didn't include 3D Blast or the Storybook series, and, I didn't finish Frontiers. Sorry. There's also Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, which, to be honest, I just didn't want to play at all, so I didn't. Regardless, most of those are getting into, like, kind of spin-off territory anyway, so I just didn't think it was a big deal. But yeah, here's the tier list ranking all the games. I don't really need to explain. You kind of got that from the video. I will say that I did actually play Secret Rings in the Black Knight. I barely played Secret Rings, though. It just was so unfun. I did actually finish Sonic and the Black Knight, and I thought it was pretty good. But those games are, like, so different, and, like, I guess they are 3D platformers, but because they're on rails, they just feel so... It just feels weird to put them in this list. But anyway, you're probably looking at this list and thinking, like, well, this is pretty much like every Sonic fan ever. I don't really have any crazy different opinions. I mean, I would probably guess that the most popular Sonic games in the Sonic fandom are Unleashed and Sonic Adventure 2, so,
that says a lot. I don't really have a unique opinion here. But it also brings up the point that I think is the most important about this video, is that nostalgia bias is just kind of stupid. You see people criticizing, Sonic Adventure 2 and Unleashed. Oh, you guys are just nostalgia blind and blah, blah, blah. You can't have an opinion on this. Man, I don't have any nostalgia bias for any of these games, obviously. But I think when people just kind of call that, say that to these games, that, you can't look past, these flaws and such, which I just think, is kind of stupid. I even if you're a huge fan of something like Sonic 06, you can't just throw the word nostalgia bias out there, because maybe you are just a big fan of the game to the point where you can look past, the flaws, you just have fun with it. And sometimes it's just as simple as that. You don't have to use the word, the buzzword nostalgia to, discredit someone's opinions of these games. Because, a lot of people do have nostalgia with Sonic Adventure 2, but for someone who is new to this series, I just think it's a really good game. No, it's obviously not a perfect video game, but it's something that I think is really, really fun, and just, it works for me. So it's, my number one game. And you might be wondering, well, what's the point of this video then? I mean, I use the word nostalgia in the thumbnail, and yes, to be honest, that is just to get people to click on the video, because I think it's an interesting subject. But I also, I don't really believe in attacking people's opinions over nostalgia. It just doesn't really, you can't use it and say it just negates all of their points of view of the game. Because sure, nostalgia can definitely influence your feelings towards something, but it doesn't eradicate all the opinions you might have on it. Clearly, there are games on here that people will throw the word nostalgia bias towards all the time, but I still have Adventure 1 and 2 high, despite them having a bunch of flaws. I still think they're really good games with a lot of great value out of them. So yeah, maybe my lesson from this video, if there can be any, I mean, this is just me ranting about Sonic for an hour. It's not really anything other than something entertaining, is just that, maybe someone who says their favorite game is some old video game, it's not just nostalgia. Maybe there's a reason for that beyond that, If the reason is nostalgia, then that's fine. I have plenty of games that I absolutely love and I'm willing to look past the flaws of, because, it's something I grew up with and have a ton of fond memories of. So anyway, that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed my long ranting. Clearly, I've been on YouTube for 10 years, kind of infrequently uploading videos since I was a teenager, and this is probably the first time I've actually put any effort into a YouTube video, and I don't know how I have 180 something subscribers, but for whatever reason you've subscribed, I appreciate it. And I still will upload videos about me collecting, but I doubt anybody who subscribed to me at that point has is watching this now, because it's kind of unrelated. But I don't plan on ditching my collecting content that I have up. I plan on keeping it around, and I still plan on uploading videos about game collecting and such. That is still what I do. I still have lots of stuff to talk about in my collection and whatnot, but I would really like to continue this kind of just talking about games, whether it's game opinions or underrated games, or I don't know, just talking about games. That's what I really want to do, and I hope you guys kind of like this somewhat unscripted talking. It's not like a podcast or anything. I still edit this video clearly, but yeah, this is pretty unscripted, which I hope is a good form of content. Maybe I'll start scripting and, doing something a little more formal, but I kind of like just being able to out my thoughts on whatever the game is that I'm talking about. But yeah, if you stay till the end of the video, I do really appreciate it, because this is a very long yap session from me, and this is already a long video. It's probably an hour and 10 minutes or something. So yeah, I appreciate you for watching, and I'll have more content coming out soon. I have plans for videos pretty soon talking about some of the odd Crash games and maybe the Spyro games as well. So I plan on making those maybe in a less long form content and doing each individual game. It's just that obviously I made this video after completing all the Sonic games, so I kind of just decided to do it all in one. But anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one.